So, if you know me, you probably know that I don't love the Disney Star Wars canon. I think it pales in comparison to the old EU and all the fantastic stories that were told therein. By the way, these are not nearly all of my Star Wars novels. These are just the ones I have at this particular apartment. You got a copy of my Jedi Path right there. But this is pretty good. I listen. Tom Taylor, I believe, is the writer for this. Yeah, Tom Taylor, and the pencils are really good too, by Kirk there, Leonard Kirk. Um, this is pretty good. I mean, like, I don't like the Disney canon Star Wars movies. Um, I don't know a lot about the books. I've read a few of them, and they've all been pretty fine. But to me, this here, like these books and these stories, were always these were my universe. These are the stories I wanted to be told, and these were my characters, and these were their natural progressions, and they progressed the way they did because the writers loved these characters, and they understood these characters, and they were able to propel these characters to their natural conclusions. The problem with Disney Star Wars is the fact that most of the people working on the films don't particularly like Star Wars or particularly care about these characters, and they don't understand them. Like J.J. Abrams, Ryan Johnson, Kathleen Kennedy. These people don't particularly love Star Wars, especially Kennedy hates Star Wars, and they don't understand the saga in the same way that, like, say, Timothy Zahn, for instance, does. But the Marvel comics and the new Star Wars canon have, for the most part, been pretty fucking cool, as far as I can tell. It seems to be the generally accepted state of things is that the comics are pretty good, but the movies aren't great. But yeah, I was actually shockingly pleased when I read this book, which takes place in the Resistance era, and I actually really enjoyed it. I like the way it explores the dark side of the Force. The dark side of the Force is not necessarily something we've had a ton of time to dwell on before. Of course, Revenge of the Sith does a great job of that, as well as Shadows of the Empire does a terrific job of exploring what it's like to be in the dark side of the Force, what it's like to be in to be a Sith or to be a denizen of the dark. But this book goes into it in a really interesting way too, in a very similar way, I would argue, to that of Revan, which is a Old Republic novel. I don't have it here on my shelf, but I do own it. Revan being the first of the Old Republic Star Wars novels. But yeah, so Snoke is basically training, and I won't do the whole book, because of copyright and stuff like that. But Snoke is training Snoke is training Kylo, and he basically forces him to learn how to. By the way, I believe that might be a kyber crystal on his ring. I can't confirm that, but that's sort of how it's drawn. That's interesting. But he sort of forces him to, like, learn how to turn his fear and harness it into force energy, harness it into control over his anger and his hatred, and thereby the dark side of the Force. And so basically, he puts him in this life or death situation wherein he has to learn how to control his emotions or he dies. And so that's interesting. Anyway, so they fly to Dagobah of all places, and I thought that was really interesting, like the way that Snoke really talks about Dagobah and talks about Luke Skywalker in a very respectful way. Like, he clearly has an appreciation for Luke Skywalker. He respects him as, like, a superior user of the Force. And he's basically saying that he was so potent that you can still, all these decades later, you can feel Luke Skywalker's presence on Dagobah, where he first gained his mastery over the Force. And I'm not saying, like, Luke Skywalker mastered the Force on Dagobah, but that's where he started to understand it. Thanks to Yoda. But yeah, so that's cool. Like, you can literally sense Luke Skywalker if you go to Dagobah. But anyway, so basically Snoke talks about Luke Skywalker. And my understanding is that like the reason Snoke's face is so screwed up, at least at one point it was said that it was Luke Skywalker that did that to Snoke. And so he starts to talk about the power of Luke Skywalker a little bit, and Ben says, why do you talk about him like that? Why do you talk about him with such respect? He's weak. And Snoke basically tells him, he's not weak, he's misguided. And if if your uncle was by my side, I would have ruled the galaxy a long time ago. So he basically belittles Kylo, but he does understand the potential of his Skywalker lineage and his natural attunement to the Force. So he sends him into the dark side cave, and he fights Luke Skywalker, much like Luke Skywalker fought Darth Vader. And in the same cave on Dagobah. It's a really cool fight. It's obviously not a real fight, it's metaphysical. But so it's about Kylo's emotional journey to let go of his attachment of Luke Skywalker. But when he has to confront his parents, well, I won't spoil that. But the point of the moral of the story is that let's see here. The point of the moral of the story here is that Kylo Ren is becoming far more powerful than even Snoke had imagined him to be able to, and it's about his journey and about his emotional transformation from Ben Solo to Kylo Ren, and he's already Kylo Ren at the beginning of this book, but he's not fully the Kylo Ren that we'll meet in Force Awakens. But yeah, no, it's a really interesting read. I do recommend this. I'm getting to Rise of Kylo Ren, which is a deeper delve into the story of Ben Solo becoming Kylo Ren and the end of Luke's Jedi Order. And so this is $3.99. That's not a bad price. It's standard. It's a one shot. It's a self-contained story, more or less. You know, obviously you've had to have watched the movies to understand the book, but you don't need to read any other supplementary material like the other one shots or Rise of Kylo Ren or anything like that. Like, it stands well enough on its own that I'd be willing to give it a fairly high score if that was something I assigned to books. But yeah, no, totally read this. If you like Kylo Ren, if you like Ben Solo, you like that journey, be sure to read this. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's essential reading material, but it does. You do understand the character a little bit better in this book than you do in the movies, because he's kind of all over the place in terms of writing. Probably because he was written by JJ and he was written by Rian Johnson and then by JJ again, and then during the whole time Kathleen Kennedy was basically changing little bits and details whether it made sense or not. But yeah, this is a more pure version probably of that character's journey than than the sequel trilogy. And I'll get back to you when I read Rise of Kylo Ren, but I have read some of it, and I know there's some really cool stuff in there with Luke Skywalker and Ben's turn to the dark side. But anyway, I'll catch you guys later. Bye.